Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker Podcast, bringing you fun and soulful interviews with spiritual teachers with the aim of tuning you in and lighting you up. You can access all episodes of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos and interviews all about finding and following your life purpose. My name is George Lizos. I'm a spiritual teacher, intuitive, the author of Be the Guru and the #1 best-selling Lightworkers Gotta Work. And today I have with me Flora Ware. Flora Ware is a ceremonial priestess, cyclic living teacher, leadership mentor, and sacred musician. As a founder of EarthSong Temple, she specializes in archetypal, spirituality, and embodiment, helping women hear their soul's voice and awaken the goddess within. Flora is deeply connected to her Celtic ancestral roots, having been on the path as a practising witch since her first full moon women's circle in 1993. She lives in British Columbia, Canada, with her wife and young wizard in training. Flora, welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker Podcast.
Woohoo! I'm so excited to be here, George. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so excited to chat about something that is very close to my heart, which is using our voice as an instrument for healing, as an instrument for manifestation, and also for singing. It's one part of expressing ourselves. But before we get started and get into the juicy stuff, I just wanted to, for the people who don't know you, what was your path to doing this work and learning to use your voice as a tool for healing and manifestation?
Well, I was singing before I could even talk, as many young babies and children, that is the case. So I was a real vocalizer from the beginning. And even by the time I was 2, my mom and dad both say that I was, like other adults, their friends would come by and I would be having like extended conversations with them and even like expressing opinions and different things. So I feel like I was a naturally communicative and expressive kid. And thankfully, I had parents that just encouraged that and didn't, tell me that I should, it wasn't the era of children only being seen and not heard, right? So I was fortunate that way. And I self-taught myself a bit of piano. I was very musically inclined. I had a little toy piano, but I didn't start studying music formally until I was a teenager. And after high school, I was studying theater and dance and music because I just loved musical theater and I really wanted to be on Broadway, that kind of dream. But what happened was that then after I finished my music diploma, that college program where I focused on the voice, was that I discovered sound healing. And I discovered that whole world of using the voice for healing and for like in a spiritual context, crystal singing bowls and tuning forks and just all that kind of thing. And I studied with Jonathan Goldman at his Healing Sounds Intensive in Colorado. And now this was back in 2004 now. And I came back from that intensive, that training, vibrationally changed. I like completely had gone through an attunement. And I was living in Vancouver at that time, which is our biggest city, but even by global standards, it's a fairly small city. But I couldn't handle being in the city anymore. I could hear the EMF. I could just like feel all of the vibrations and the frequencies. So I moved to the mountains and I just like got really back to nature. And so really since that time now, we're still talking another 15 years, I learned to shift from using my voice as an entertainer to using my voice as in a spiritual ceremonial aspect, using my voice as a priestess. And really it's only been in the last 5 years that I've fully aligned with that path and have come to see how I use my voice and how I can also guide others in using their voice in our spiritual practices, in making magic, and that there's just a whole other world out there. There was a whole other world out there for me as a singer to use my voice in this different way.
That is so interesting, and I'm so like hooked into what you're saying right now, because I've been a singer myself, a musical theater actor. I've been using my voice to entertain, and I found this. I'm in this stage in my spiritual path where I'm like, you know what? I love performing, I love singing to entertain, but how can I make this more spiritual? How can I bring singing and my voice into spirituality? And I just don't know how. Like I can see, I hear people chanting. I'm not attracted to that. There are so many different ways to go about it. So what I would like you to do right now is just share a little bit of what are the different ways we can use our voice in our spirituality, for healing, for manifestation, for whatever it is we're working on. It could be like for sound healing, it could be for chanting, it could be for singing. So what are those different ways?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love that you brought up what you're resonant with, and that we can try on practices, but when we just know, like, yeah, that's not for me. I mean, sometimes we do need to try it a couple times to see if it really is or not. But um, for me, I do love chanting. And so I love chanting. I love writing my own songs, devotional chants. I've written a lot of devotional chants purely out of need. Like, I'm not finding a song for spring equinox that I really love. So I guess I have to write it. So, necessity being the mother of all invention. But aside from that, we can use our voices really just in like speaking out loud when we are in a ritual. Even if you're a solo practitioner, you may have just fallen into the habit of being very silent in your practice. Like, I know that I did for a while. It was just like a silent practice. I would ground, I would meditate, I would be doing the ritual all in silence. And so I want to inspire the listeners to think, well, what could you say out loud when you're in your own ritual? Do you want to cast the circle by speaking out loud, calling the directions, calling in the elements, whatever it is? Is there a particular deity that you're working with? Or do you want to invite and really welcome in your spirit team, your guardian angel, or an ancestor that you're working with, whatever? Like, speak their name out loud. And if there's something that you are releasing, that you're in a banishing ritual, like, let it out, let it go through your voice, even just with sound, like growling, humming, sighing, blah, right? Like, be expressive, because our throat chakras are that center for expression. So use it, express it, what it is that you're trying to make the magic ritual around. Or if you're calling in, right? If you're doing an attraction or a manifesting, like, say it out loud, what it is that you're calling in. We can use our voices in so many ways, truly.
I love that. So we've got speaking out loud, we've got singing, we've got chanting, we've got humming, I guess, screaming and just letting it all out. I remember when I was a kid, I just wanted to scream because I was holding so much inside, and I remember feeling so liberated when I finally did. And now with my clients, sometimes I'm like, I can feel them like holding so much tension here. I'm like, just let it all out, just scream it all out, and they feel so like empowered and liberated after that. And something that I do in my own practice as well is I use singing for space clearing, like using my voice to like clear the energy of a person over a house in general. Such powerful ways. And do you know what I found, Flora? Is that because you're a Celtic priestess, I'm a Greek pagan priest, we both connected with our roots. And what I found is that my spiritual practice before going into paganism, before returning back to it, was silent like yours. And then as soon as I stepped into my pagan traditions, I was encouraged to speak up and to sing the hymns to Apollo, for example, or to speak up the Orphic hymns to the different gods. And I found it challenging at first, even though I was a singer. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable like speaking ceremony out loud. And then I realized, you know what? There's something behind that. So why do you think there has been a shift away from speaking out in general, not just in ceremony, from the ancient times until now, the modern times, what has silenced us?
Patriarchy.
I was
I
fishing for that word.
well, let me think. What's happened? Patriarchy. It's so true, and I love that you bring that up, because we can look at all the world's religions or origin myths, indigenous cultures, and so many of them begin with sound. Even in the Bible, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, right? Or in the Upanishads, the sacred Hindu text, Om, the sacred vibration of consciousness that then from formlessness into form. The Australian Aboriginals, it's a cross cultural all around, that there was a deep understanding we had a deep understanding of how sound creates. It creates real life. It created reality. There was like our sound that can create, again, that movement from formlessness into form. And whether it was, the spoken word of God, or an understanding of vibrational frequencies that that I think we just naturally understood that. And that's why, our ancient ancestors would not only use their voices, but many instruments in a kind of spiritual ceremony. There would be drumming, there would be rattles, there would be any number of instruments, as well as voices in that act of devotion. And then, as we all know, there became this, bid for power, and the split, and the the great forgetting, and the illusion that we needed someone to intermediate between us and our relationship with the divine, just not across the board, but pretty much. And so then it was like only the priest would speak, or only the head person. And so they literally taking away that personal connection through our voices. I mean, of course, I in the Christian tradition, they were still encouraged to pray, but even praying is often portrayed as like whispering, like very quiet, like I'm just going to whisper my prayer, instead of like speaking it out loud and really being clear in what you are praying for. So there's a huge wounding for many of us, if not all of us, around our throat chakra. Do we feel safe to express what it is that we are, our truth, or what we believe, or what it is that we are desiring, wanting to manifest? Like, is it safe to speak it out loud? And then when you get into singing, oh boy, I mean, how many of us were told that we didn't have nice voices, and to be quiet, or really insulted with our singing voices at a vulnerable age, usually, that then we just shut up. And particularly I find in women, just with the oppression, is to be silent, and to just keep quiet and smile. And so George, there's just so many reasons. And this is part of the great healing of our voices, goes beyond just our spiritual relationship, but it's so healing and empowering on many, many levels.
I love that you mentioned that about praying and the different ways of praying across cultures, because something that I learned as well in my Greek pagan training was that in Christianism, it's all about looking downwards, being humble, whispering the prayer, and just like begging for something. Whereas what I learned, that the ancient Greeks never begged or asked for something, they thanked for the provision of something. And the prayer was always looking upwards, extending the hands up to the gods, and then speaking the gratitude essentially out loud. So it's interesting how this shift, this wounding, this losing of our voices happened and was expressed in so many different ways. It was embodied in a way, but also silenced in other ways too. And talking about the ancientness, if that is a word, of using sound for creation, I was recently reading the Kybalion, which is an ancient text Well, it's a rendition of an ancient text of the ancient Hermeticists, which is a philosophical school that originated in ancient Greece and Egypt. And the word, it's a Greek word, gymphalion, which means cymbal, which is the drum. It's a cymbal drum. So essentially, it was believed by the Hermetists that the world was created, the universe was created with 7 main sounds. There were 7 sounds that vibrated the 7 laws of the universe upon which the Kybalion is based on. So it's so interesting that essentially everything is sound, everything is vibration, everything is moving, and everything has a frequency. So how wonderful to be able to access that with our voice and use it to create. So speaking of that, so you spoke about using our voice for healing and manifestation. So how can we use it for healing? Let's start there.
Well, I love that you brought that up, especially because I have a deep connection to 7s. And we see that too, these like repeated patterns and things that come up that call to us. Because one of the first way that I was actually ever sharing or teaching this material was through chakra toning and the 7 chakras and the vowels or the frequencies that can connect to them. And I've since developed that work into like the 7 primary archetypes, feminine archetypes. I haven't yet spent the time yet to, make the correspondences with the sacred masculine archetypes, but the 777 is just so big for me. So yeah, it is. Everything's vibration. So in terms of healing, it really comes from that premise of that everything is vibration. And if there is an illness, a disease, or even if there's just an imbalance, it's an imbalance. There's an imbalance somewhere, and what kind of frequencies or vibration, what would need to support that, whatever it is, to come back into a balance, to come back into harmony. Which is also a musical word, right? Harmony, when things like sound beautiful together, or not even necessarily beautiful, but that they work together, right? In that harmony. So using our voices for our own healing, well, again, on a very basic level that we can do every day is speaking our truth. Right. And yes, there can be better situations or to speak up or not. We still can have discernment, and we can still choose to, it's not like we always have to speak up in the very moment of that, but a general living your life that you are not hiding who you are, what you think, what you believe, or speaking up for things like just that kind of vocal health on a very spiritual level cannot be undervalued, right? So I'm just going to say that right now. Start speaking your truth, and that the healing that people experience from that is profound. But in a more, I guess, focused way and in a personal practice, I really love the toning. The chakra toning is a great way to start. But even if you don't feel, comfortable with chakras, you can just think about toning. And all toning is long, like sustained vowel sounds. All it is, like a that's a tone. So anyone can do it. You don't need to, it's not about hitting the right note. It's not about having a beautiful singing voice. We need to let go of all of that conditioning around our voice, and to sit with yourself and in a meditative state and in a grounded, you've grounded your energy. We can tone just what we feel like our body needs to support us in coming back into balance. Often, again, I'll come back to that tried and true process of like releasing to then receive something. So we can use our voices. We can tone low for the lower chakras, and then the middle of our range is usually like, it's very much connected to our heart, and then the higher notes are our upper chakras. But again, you don't need to understand music or have a trained singing voice to be able to do this. Just begin to intuitively explore with toning in your own practice, and and letting yourself be guided to what you feel like you need today. And maybe it does turn into some growls or howls or shouts, or to let it out. And, or you could surprise yourself and find yourself like beautiful, high angelic notes singing while you receive beautiful downloads from your spirit team. You don't know what's going to happen when you open your voice and you start using your voice as your most personal and powerful instrument for your healing and magic making.
Wow, this is so groundbreaking for me right now, because although when I sing, I'm very structured in my approach. I'm like, this is a song I need to learn today for my singing class. I'm just sitting down, listening to it, and then practicing it. I've never actually allowed myself to do like inspired singing, like let myself just create sounds and just tone the different like parts of my body. I'm like, that's so interesting, because I remember now whenever I do my vocal exercises to warm up, I always like feel aligned. I can feel my energy shifting. I'm like, well, I'm actually toning right now. I'm just realizing this right now. I'm toning without even knowing that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know what, George, I was the same way, because I came from studying singing formally. I actually started with Italian opera, by the way, just, to challenge myself. And then the Broadway, the musical theater. Then I really got into jazz. The American Songbook. Um, and I was a good singer. I was a good singer. I was a very good interpreter of music, other people's music, right? So it was a process for me, to free my voice to tone and sound and sing intuitively as well. It's entirely different. So I love that you're having this moment, because you're realizing, wait a minute, I'm doing that. I didn't even realize I was doing that when I was warming up. What would happen if I actually sat down and started doing some of that in my, in your meditation, in your practice? Yeah.
I'm actually meeting my singing teacher for coffee tomorrow. I'm definitely going to bring this up and have a conversation about it. Now, my final question has to do with manifestation. So, we know how to start using our voice for healing. There are so many different ways, but toning is a great way to start with. But how about manifestation? How can we use our voice to manifest something?
Okay, so I don't know how this started, but the tradition of like when you blow your birthday candles out and you make a wish, and it's like you're not supposed to tell anyone. Like, how did this happen, right? Because we need to tell people what we're wishing. We need to again, like, shout it from the rooftops. This is what I'm wanting to create. Now, again, to be fair, we're not meant to share our dreams with everyone, because there are many occasions where we do need to keep that private, and we don't want to talk to people who are going to say, well, that's a ridiculous idea, or whatever it is, right? Shoot us down. But so just all the little ways that, again, we've been conditioned to be silenced, and like, shh, don't talk about that. No, start talking about that, even if it begins with yourself, and like a journaling practice. And again, this isn't typically voice, right? But you are expressing, you are at least admitting, this is what I'm wanting to manifest, and I'm writing it down, right? That kind of thing. But there is power in speaking it out loud to at least one person, one trusted person, right? And saying, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm wanting to manifest. This is what I'm thinking that I could have this done by this time. Putting it on a dream line, right? A timeline for your dreams. Put your dreams on a dream line. Speaking it out loud. And I certainly know that for entrepreneurs who are constantly evolving, like what we offer or what we do, and we're also given the opportunity a lot in our society of being asked, what do you do? So what do you do? Right? We all get asked that question. This is your opportunity to start speaking into a new reality for yourself too, if you're willing, if you're brave enough. Next time you have that opportunity, instead of your usual answer of like, oh, well, this is what I do, blah, 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 why not start speaking into what it is that you are working towards or what you are wanting to do, right? Just speak it out loud, make it real, and use the magic vibrations of your voice to bring it into your reality.
I gotta say, this tool, especially like speaking out our desire, is so powerful. I want to share a quick story. So over the past year and a half, I've been doing a practice with my best friend. So every morning we send each other a voice message on WhatsApp, talking about our desire for the future, but in the past tense. And therefore said, so I already have this, whatever it is. And then you create a story about it and you just add to it every single day. So a year later, we just like both had this realization that everything we talked about a year before had already manifested because we spoke it out loud. So it's definitely a very powerful way to go about it.
Exactly. Yay.
So Flora, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I loved all that we talked about and I can't wait for people to experience your magic. Can you please let everyone know where they can get in touch with you and how they can work with you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me at floraware.ca. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, of course. And yeah, I would love it if you're interested in some deeper archetypal work as well. I have a free quiz. You can find out what is your strongest archetype. And you can also look at that too as, is this a naturally expressive archetype? What kinds of things, does your strong archetype want to express in this world? And, really, yeah, there's so much to explore and play with. So thanks again, George. It's been a real pleasure to be here and to talk about this subject.
Thank you so much for being here. And of course, all the links will be in the show notes below so that everybody can access them. Wishing you a lovely rest of your day.